Okay, now it's time to do your plan. In order to do the plan, we need to look carefully at what our materials are and think about our dependent and independent variables. So I'm going to do this first by talking about the plan that we're going to make for our example experiment for what happens to your heart rate with your increased activity. So I'm going to put the example plan up here, and then we'll talk about the plan you need to do for the vascular system for your scientific inquiry. All right, so this is the planning table that we always use to do our plan before we do anything else. So in this plan, there's a general column, and then there's an operational plan column. On the general plan, you're just putting general things you're going to have to do. Operational plan, you're going to do specific steps. So what will change? So in our experiment, the one thing that we're going to be changing for our example scientific inquiry is the amount of activity. The amount of activity is going to change. What is going to stay the same? Well, we want to do everything that's the same except for the one thing we're changing. So the only thing we're going to be changing in our example inquiry is the amount of activity we're going to do. Everything else needs to stay the same. So I'm going to say place where you are is going to stay the same. I'm going to do, I'm just going to change that to location. Location is going to stay the same. I can't even think of what else might stay the same. Let's leave it at just as location for right now, but everything needs to stay the same except for the amount of activity. All right, what are we going to observe? Well, we're going to be measuring or observing our heart rate. Okay, so that's very general what we need to do. What we need to do for our general plan. Now we need to turn those into specific steps. All right, so number one. I need to change amount of activity into a specific step. So my first step is going to be start by sitting in a chair. Sit for 1 minute and take your heart rate for that entire minute. Count your pulse and record after the minute is over. So I went from amount of activity. So I said start by sitting in a chair. So I made that much more specific. The second thing I need to say is when you're done with that, when finished, stand up, and I have to pick an activity to do. And do jumping jacks for 1 minute. Okay, so since I sat for 1 minute, I also need to do the jumping jacks for 1 minute, and I'm going to say that's staying the same too. Time of activity is going to be the same. All right. When finished, stand up and do jumping jacks for 1 minute. Take your pulse for that minute and then record. All right. Here I would write whatever's going to stay the same. I already said that the time is going to stay the same, so now I just need to add location. Make sure that both your sitting and your jumping jacks happens in the same place in the room. All right. And then what will you measure? I'm going to change that into something more specific. Measure your heart rate for both being seated and after jumping jacks, and compare your results. Okay, so this is my first draft. Now I want to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. So I'm going to say number one, start by sitting in a chair, sit for 1 minute, and take your heart rate for that entire minute. Count your pulse. Start by sitting in a chair for 1 minute. I need to make it so after 1 minute, take your pulse for a minute, because I want to make sure that the activity time stays the same, and then I'm going to do the pulse after the activity. So the first activity is sitting in a chair, and then I'm going to take the pulse afterwards. I think that's redundant, so I can get rid of this. After 1 minute, take your pulse for a minute and record. Alright. When finished, stand up and do jumping jacks for 1 minute. And then sit down after and immediately take your pulse for 1 minute and record. So I want to make sure it's exactly the same. Now I'm doing exactly the same thing for those two things. Anything else that I need to be the same. So make sure that both your sitting and your jumping jacks happen in the same location in the room. Measure your heart rate for being, I think this is redundant. I can take this out because I already said to do that. Alright, so at this point I have included in my plan what will change, which is the amount of activity, and I put specific steps for that. I said what would stay the same, and I have specific things in my steps to say what will stay the same. And then what I will observe or measure, I have specific steps to make sure that I'm measuring my heart rate / pulse. Alright, so I am done now with the example. Now what you guys need to do today is you're going to go into Schoology. You're going to get to the plan page, which you should already be on right now. And you're going to click on this tab that says Planning Table. When you click on that tab, you're going to have to sign yourself in. There should be a sign in button here. You're going to click sign in. You're not going to be able to use this document at all until you're signed in. Okay? So once you click sign in, it's going to take you to the planning. Oh, excuse me. I said that wrong. So once you're signed in, you have to go to File. Oh, I have to sign in. Once you're signed in, hold on 1 second. Once you're signed in, you're going to go to File, Make a Copy. File, Make a Copy. And I would give it a specific name. I'm going to say Planning Table Celery Inquiry, and say OK. So once you have your own copy of the document, now you can get in there and you can change it. So your job is to look at your material list on Schoology and then to decide what is the one thing that will change, what are all the things that are going to stay the same, and what are you going to observe, and you're going to generally put it in here. So I'm going to start you off. The one thing that is going to change, leaves versus no leaves on celery. Okay? Then you have to come up with all the things that are going to stay the same in the inquiry, and all the things, and the one thing that we're going to measure. You're going to take these general steps and you're going to turn them into something specific. So I might say, get 2 cups, fill with, and I'm not going to tell you how much water, with blank amount of water. Okay? Put food dye, put same food dye in each cup, and then I would keep going specifically with these steps. Okay? So you're going to fill out the general plan column, and then you're going to do the operational plan column. You need to make sure that when you do this, you use all of the materials. So you're going to use all of these. You can't leave anything out. Alright. Try this today on your own, and we'll go over it tomorrow in class. Good luck, guys.